Hi, my name is Lorraine Garvey of District 32, and I've got the absolute pleasure of having a conversation today with Stephen Earel of Cor Cordis. How are you, Stephen?
I'm very well, thanks, Lorraine, and thank you for having me.
How is it over on the Gold Coast? Do you have winter there?
We don't have winter on the Gold Coast, only sunny days. A little bit of rain today, which is a bit unusual for the coast, particularly in winter.
Well, I'm just letting people know and just setting the scene that you're in the sunny Gold Coast and we're in Baltic WA at the minute.
Very good.
Like Stephen, so that's really setting the scene because I'm going to introduce you to, the business community in WA and in the Gold Coast. And what you're going to speak at one of the events for us on the Gold Coast, and you're going to be speaking around, what we have to look out for as business owners. What are the early warning signs? What are the red flags that we need to look at before we get to, something as bad as insolvency? Right, so we're going to be looking at, you're going to share that information with us. But before I get into that, Stephen, could you just tell us a bit about who you are and what your role is in Cor Cordis, and how does Cor Cordis work with clients? What do you do?
Well, look, absolutely, Lorraine. So, look, I've been in the insolvency, turnaround and restructuring industry for over 15 years now. I'm a registered liquidator, and I'm a member of the Turnaround Management Association of Australia. I'm also a CPA and an affiliate member of Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. And look, I've been fortunate enough to have worked on some of the larger restructuring and insolvency and turnaround engagements, not just throughout Australia, but also internationally, and utilising a diverse background and experiences, certainly able to provide some tailored advice to businesses during times of distress, but also picking up on those early warning signs. And about Cor Cordis, well, look, gee, I joined the firm back in 2016, and now, look, for over 16 years, the firm's been around, and we provide restructuring and turnaround and advisory and forensic services. We're one of Australia's largest boutique advisory firms, with just over 20 partners and 120 staff, with offices in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth.
Wow. So you know what you're talking about then.
Yeah. Look, one of the good things which I like about Cor Cordis in particular is that we do bring a diverse background and experience from our staff as well. So we've got people that have worked in government, we've got people that have worked in major Australian banks, we've got people who are accountants who are background in finance and economics. So we've got people from all sorts of areas in that professional services, banking, and forensics industry. So and for us, it's a sort of whole of a team approach as well. It's not just myself as a partner or other practitioners, but it's the whole, it's a tailored team for a specific job to try and tailor a strategy to get solutions and outcomes.
Okay. So let me ask you then, thank you for sharing that, Stephen. Let me ask you then, there's been talk for a long time around, recession, false economies, people being supported, businesses being supported and held up through COVID cash payments and stuff like that. And that's now what we're seeing the tail end of now. What has your experience been over the last, 2 or 3 years with regards to potential insolvency, businesses in danger? I'm sure you've managed to help people come out of that danger, but what has been your experience and just the state of business, really?
Yeah, look, it's been unusual. I think coming into the pandemic, there was an expectation that there would be an increase in insolvencies and business failures, but we saw the opposite, and that was largely underpinned by the government, and not just at a domestic level, but at a global level. Government support programs and stimulus, but also some non-monetary measures and policy changes, and we saw that particularly in the retail space, with most states in Australia adopting some rent relief provisions and moratoriums on enforcement activities. So all of that over that pandemic period. Now, those programs have been phased out as of 2022, so we're back operating in a more normal business environment without the government intervention. But what we did see over that 2020 to 2022 period was an environment that was very much ripe for restructuring opportunities, where you did have a higher degree of stakeholder support, whether it's from your lenders, whether it's from the Australian Taxation Office, whether it might have been from landlords, but generally most businesses' stakeholders were more accommodating to support. We're starting to see a shift in that now, as people want to collect what is outstanding, and that appetite to compromise or write off debt or support businesses through a restructure is starting to shift. So if you were looking to restructure your business during that pandemic period, I haven't seen better conditions to do so in.
Wow, okay. So that's it's always nice to hear the positive on the back of that, because as business owners on the ground level, there's lots of gossip and fear mongering and crystal ball looking, so it's really nice to hear from people like yourself who are on the ground and know what's actually happening.
Absolutely, and look, at probably something that we do better than most firms is, and what our niche is in that restructuring space, through a recapitalisation of businesses and formal processes such as voluntary administrations. And the pandemic period really lent itself to that because of the extent of the stakeholder support. Now, again, this is starting to shift, but interestingly enough, while business failures were down, it actually has been one of our busier periods, and the firm has actually grown year on year since the pandemic started, which is a fantastic achievement in challenging times.
So, Stephen, you're going to speak at Connect Premium event in the Gold Coast on the 21st of July. Why is it important that business owners get access to this information? It's a
great question. Great question, Lorraine. And I think we're heading into, unprecedented and uncertain times. That those government support measures have been phased out. And what we're going to start to see is global and local markets operate without the same level of intervention and support which they previously have seen. We've got globally record high inflation. We've also got the manifestation of that inflation into higher interest rates and continually increasing interest rates. So cost of capital is becoming more expensive. Credit funders and credit providers are becoming more risk adverse. So that access to capital is going to become harder to obtain, which is, coupled with some uncertain economic times, is going to make very, very challenging conditions for business owners. And particularly, we still haven't seen those labour constraints ease yet either. And look, that may very well come in the next 12 months, but I'm dealing with a number of businesses who are really struggling to sufficiently staff or man their businesses. So there are headwinds facing local SME businesses in particular, and it's really important to understand some of those early warning signs. That it's maybe not just for their businesses, but it could be clients, it could be people they are doing businesses with. It can be mum and dads at barbecues. I think it's going to be quite widespread, and what we are likely to see over the next 12 to 18 months, we haven't witnessed since the mid 2000s.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm delighted to hear from the experts and yourself. I'm really looking forward to the event on the 21st. I think it is really vital that we do know those early warning signs, because, as business owners, being business owners, it's head down, bum up, get on with it. We're not necessarily forecasting or we're not thinking about it. So I think it's really important for yourself to bring this information to the forefront so that we're armed and that we can, do the best that we can.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it, Lorraine. It's always enjoyable presenting to a group of people, and particularly talking about something you're very passionate about.
So, Stephen, thank you very much for your time today. I'm really looking forward to the presentation, and thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Appreciate your time.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.